Hello friends. Have you ever seen fire try to love water? Sounds poetic, right? But what if I told you that this isn't just a metaphor, it's the reality when an Aries man and a Cancer woman come together? Two souls, born from entirely different elements, trying to dance to the rhythm of love, ambition, and everything in between. He's bold, impulsive, and always chasing the next adventure. She's intuitive, nurturing, and deeply rooted in emotional security. So what happens when the ram and the crab fall for each other? Let's dive deep into the fire and water saga of Aries man and Cancer woman. Spoiler alert, it's not your typical love story. Love, a thunderstorm and a still lake. When it comes to love between an Aries man and a Cancer woman, the connection is as complicated as it is compelling. It's not the kind of relationship that just makes sense on paper. This is the kind that writes its own poetry in lightning and tide. From the moment their energies collide, it's clear that they come from vastly different emotional ecosystems. He, a creature of action, fire, and fearless declarations. She, a soul of tides, moods, and unspoken intuition. Together, their emotional language isn't shared, it's translated, often slowly and clumsily, until real understanding begins to bloom. The Aries man enters love like a warrior charging into battle. He falls quickly, deeply, and with the intensity of someone who has no interest in hiding his desire. His affection is obvious, unfiltered, sometimes overwhelming. He loves big. But not always carefully. That's where the Cancer woman throws him off his rhythm. She isn't immediately swept up in passion. Her love grows in layers, first safety, then vulnerability, then tenderness. For Aries, waiting feels like rejection. For Cancer, rushing feels like danger. This is where the dance begins. Aries doesn't do slow burn by nature. He believes love should feel like fireworks and adrenaline. If he likes someone, he tells them. If he wants something, he goes after it. Cancer, however, needs to feel emotionally protected before she opens herself to someone fully. Her love is rooted in trust, and trust takes time. She watches before she leaps. She observes how Aries reacts when she's quiet, moody, or scared. She notices whether he holds space for her or gets frustrated by what he doesn't understand. And when he does stick around, that's when she lets him in. This push and pull can be agonizing. Aries feels like he's being kept at arm's length. Cancer feels like she's being pushed off a cliff. It's in this tension, however, that transformation happens, if both are willing. Aries must learn the difference between passion and presence. He needs to realize that not every loving moment needs to be loud. That sometimes, sitting beside her in silence is more powerful than any romantic gesture. And Cancer? She needs to lean into risk. To allow herself to believe that love doesn't always come wrapped in certainty, that sometimes it comes blazing, raw, and imperfect. One of the deepest challenges they face is emotional communication. Aries is direct and doesn't always recognize the weight of his words. He might dismiss her feelings in an effort to fix things quickly. Just get over it, he'll say. Not out of cruelty, but from a place of practicality. Meanwhile, Cancer is deeply affected by tone, subtext, and timing. She doesn't always speak her pain, she expects it to be sensed. This mismatch can cause friction. She feels unseen. He feels confused. But with effort, they can learn each other's dialect of love. When it works, it's breathtaking. Aries brings excitement to Cancer's world, pulling her out of emotional spirals and into spontaneous joy. He makes her feel alive. He shows her that vulnerability doesn't have to mean weakness. And Cancer? She gives Aries something he didn't even know he needed, a place to rest. In her presence, he finds emotional depth, comfort, and a tenderness that makes his battles feel worth fighting. She softens his rough edges. He brightens her shadows. But it takes intentional work. Aries needs to be mindful of his temper and tone. Cancer is incredibly sensitive and can be wounded easily by harshness. And Cancer needs to resist the urge to retreat into her shell whenever things feel uncertain. She must learn to stay present even when emotions swell. If she hides every time she's scared, Aries will eventually stop knocking. If Aries pushes too hard every time she hesitates, she'll pull away for good. Compatibility isn't guaranteed, but the reward is profound. Their love is not simple, but it is rich. It's not always easy, but it's deeply fulfilling. It's the kind of connection that teaches both partners to stretch beyond their defaults. For Aries, it's the lesson of emotional depth. For Cancer, it's the lesson of bold devotion. So yes, when fire and water meet, they don't just clash. They create steam, movement, transformation. It's not always calm. It's not always certain. But it is absolutely unforgettable. And isn't that what love is really about? Sex, fire meets tide. When the Aries man and the Cancer woman come together in the bedroom, it's not just sparks, it's seismic. Their chemistry isn't surface-level attraction, it's elemental. Aries brings the fire, fierce, raw, unrestrained. Cancer brings the tide, deep, intuitive, emotionally immersive. Together, their physical union has the power to be both healing and explosive, but only if they can respect each other's emotional landscapes. Aries is a lover of the moment. He thrives on intensity, passion, and the adrenaline of physical connection. To him, sex is a visceral experience, an expression of desire in its purest form. He doesn't tiptoe, he dives. He's confident, assertive, and often takes the lead with bold moves and unapologetic hunger. But here's the challenge: the Cancer woman needs more than just heat, she needs to feel held. Emotionally, spiritually, and yes, physically too. To her, sex is not separate from the heart. She craves depth, safety. That unspoken emotional contract that says, you see me, all of me, and still choose to touch me. For her to open up fully, she must feel emotionally secure. If Aries charges in without understanding that, it can feel invasive. Even aggressive. Not because his intentions are wrong, but because his rhythm is different. He wants to explore the body. She wants to explore the soul. Their desire is real, but their approach can clash unless there's trust, patience, and an openness to learning from each other. If Aries can slow down, truly slow down, something incredible happens. He begins to notice the subtle language of her body, the silent cues of her breath, the quiet shifts in her energy. He starts to realize that pleasure isn't just about action, but about presence. For him, this is revolutionary. For her, it's validating. On the flip side, if Cancer allows herself to lean into Aries' spontaneity, to surrender control and step into the wild unknown of the moment, she discovers parts of herself that were previously untapped. She learns to burn, not in fear, but in desire. There is alchemy in this connection. Aries brings a boldness that awakens the Cancer woman's sensuality in ways she didn't know she needed. He makes her feel desired in a fierce, consuming way. And Cancer? She wraps him in emotion, turning a physical act into a deeply intimate experience. She slows time. She teaches him the art of emotional anticipation, the seduction of tenderness. It's not just physical, it's poetic. But let's not sugarcoat it. When things go wrong, they can go very wrong. If Aries becomes emotionally disconnected or sees sex as just another conquest, Cancer will shut down. Her defenses rise. Her walls come back up. She feels used, not loved. And Aries? He doesn't always understand what just happened. He'll feel rejected, confused, even angry, not realizing that her withdrawal is a protective response to feeling unseen. On the other hand, if Cancer becomes overly dependent, seeking constant reassurance or tying sex too tightly to emotional validation, Aries may feel smothered. He craves freedom and intimacy, space to breathe and explore without emotional policing. If she turns passion into pressure, he starts to pull away, not because he doesn't care, but because he feels trapped. That's why emotional maturity is key here. They must learn each other's love language, not just in words, but in touch, timing, and intention. Aries must see beyond the physical. Cancer must learn to embrace imperfection. And both must understand that the magic happens not when they change for each other, but when they stretch to meet in the middle. When they do, their intimacy becomes something rare, passionate and profound. It's the fire that doesn't scorch. The tide that doesn't drown. A connection that feels alive, dynamic, and transformative. It may not be easy, but when these two get it right, it's unforgettable. In the end, sex between an Aries man and a Cancer woman isn't just about pleasure, it's about evolution. It's where instinct meets intuition. Where the wild meets the wise. And in that sacred space, they don't just make love, they make meaning. Marriage, building a house on a volcano. Marriage between an Aries man and a Cancer woman is like setting up home on the edge of a volcano, breathtaking, powerful, but never without the occasional tremor. These two signs approach love from such different directions that it's easy to assume they'll never find common ground. Aries is the spark, always moving, always pushing forward. Cancer is the shell, anchored in emotional depth and slow to open fully. But here's the twist, if they do manage to understand each other, their union becomes something unshakable. Because where there's fire and water, there's steam, and steam can power the strongest engines. The Aries man isn't the traditional, settling down, type. He marries because he chooses to, not because it's expected. And when he does, he brings with him an unstoppable energy, a deep loyalty, and a fierce desire to protect what's his. But he also brings intensity. He wants a partner who can move with him, dream with him, and rise after every fall. Cancer, by contrast, dreams of emotional safety, a cozy haven, and a partner who won't disappear when things get messy. She's not interested in loud declarations, she wants steady presence. While Aries thinks love is proven through action, Cancer believes it's shown through nurturing. This fundamental difference can either divide them, or define them. At the core of their marital challenges is a difference in how they respond to conflict. Aries attacks. Cancer retreats. The moment something goes wrong, Aries wants to fix it now, loudly, directly, with blunt honesty. He might say things he doesn't mean just to get a reaction. Cancer, overwhelmed by the emotional storm, pulls back into her shell, needing time to process. She's not avoiding him, she's protecting herself. Unfortunately, Aries sees this withdrawal as rejection. Cancer sees his outbursts as threats. This misunderstanding can spiral into long silences, hurt feelings, and emotional distance, unless they learn to decode each other's reactions. The key to making this marriage work? Emotional fluency. Aries has to understand that not every disagreement is a battle to be won. Sometimes, it's a chance to listen without fixing. To be present without performing. Cancer, on the other hand, must realize that not every emotional wave is a tsunami. Sometimes, expressing frustration or anger is healthy. Aries isn't attacking her, he's just being raw. When she stops fearing his fire and he stops fearing her depth, they discover a shared vulnerability that becomes the glue of their relationship. Daily life between these two is anything but boring. Aries brings excitement, spontaneity, and ambition to the marriage. He's the one who says, "Let's take a weekend trip with no plans," or "I've got a new business idea, are you in?" Cancer grounds their life in meaning, memory, and emotional rituals. She remembers every anniversary, plans cozy dinners, and creates a space where Aries can actually relax. Together, they bring both motion and meaning to the relationship. The thrill of fire, and the calm of water. But neither can take the other for granted. Aries must remember that emotional presence means staying during the hard conversations, not just during the highs. He has to learn to comfort without rushing to resolution, to be patient when Cancer needs reassurance instead of answers. Cancer, meanwhile, must stop interpreting Aries' independence as abandonment. She has to give him space to breathe, to explore, to express himself freely, without assuming that distance means detachment. Compromise isn't optional here, it's the foundation. Aries needs to slow down sometimes. Remember birthdays. Answer texts. Apologize when his words come out too sharp. Cancer needs to open up when she's hurt, not expect him to guess. She must resist the urge to micromanage or emotionally parent her partner. Love isn't control. It's trust. Especially with Aries, who needs to feel trusted in order to stay. If they lean into the work, if they build respect into their daily interactions, something beautiful happens. They become each other's anchor and wings. Aries pushes them forward when life gets too stagnant. Cancer pulls them close when the world becomes too loud. He reminds her to be bold. She reminds him to be soft. And together, they build not just a marriage, but a sanctuary. Because when fire learns to warm instead of scorch, and water learns to flow instead of flood, they stop canceling each other out, and start creating something far more powerful, harmony. And that's what makes this marriage so worth the risk. Friendship, yin and yang. The friendship between an Aries man and a Cancer woman is one of those rare bonds that seems almost accidental at first, but ends up being unshakably solid. It's a connection that defies logic. He's fire, she's water. He's chaos, she's comfort. And yet, they click. Maybe not in loud, flashy ways, but in a quiet, consistent rhythm that gets stronger over time. This isn't a friendship built on sameness, it's built on balance. Where one moves fast, the other slows down. Where one acts, the other thinks. And somehow, that dance works. In friendship, they're free from the pressures that make romance complicated. Aries doesn't have to worry about emotional intimacy in the way he would with a romantic partner. He can show up messy, impulsive, full of half-baked ideas, and Cancer won't try to fix him, she'll just be there. She listens when no one else has the patience. She remembers the things he says in passing and checks on him when no one else thinks to. For her, friendship is an emotional commitment, a quiet promise, you're not alone. And Aries, in his own fiery way, honors that. He may not always say it, but he shows it, in his loyalty, his fierce protectiveness, and his refusal to let anyone disrespect someone he considers his own. Cancer, on the other hand, gets something profound from this dynamic. With Aries, she doesn't have to be the caretaker all the time. He pushes her to be spontaneous, to stop overanalyzing, to live. He shows her that it's okay to say yes before you have all the answers. He brings adventure into her carefully curated emotional world, and in doing so, reminds her that joy doesn't always have to be earned, it can just be. She softens his edges, and he adds spark to her stillness. The beauty of their friendship lies in how they challenge each other, without trying to change each other. Aries isn't afraid to call Cancer out when she's hiding behind her fears. Stop overthinking it, he'll say. Just do it. And while that might irritate her in the moment, deep down she appreciates it. She needs that nudge. Just as Aries, for all his bravado, secretly craves someone who sees through his armor. Cancer's emotional insight is like a mirror he didn't ask for, but can't ignore. She calls him out too, just with gentleness instead of volume. You say you're fine, she'll note quietly, but I don't believe you. That kind of friendship, the kind that sees beyond the surface, is rare. And they know it. When life gets messy, they're the ones texting at 2 a.m. Aries may be blunt, but he's the first to say, "What do you need? I'll be there." Cancer may be soft, but she's unshakable in a crisis. She brings snacks, tissues, backup plans. She remembers birthdays and breakups. And Aries? He'll threaten anyone who made her cry, even if it's just her Wi-Fi provider. There's humor here, too. Their differences spark hilarious conversations, playful jabs, and the kind of inside jokes that last for years. They teach each other how to laugh at themselves, and how to take life just seriously enough. But it's not all sunshine. Aries might get impatient when Cancer needs time to process. "Why are you still thinking about that?" he'll ask, frustrated. Cancer might feel wounded when Aries forgets something important or disappears emotionally for a while. "Am I just a backup plan?" she'll wonder. Their friendship, like any meaningful bond, takes work. Aries has to learn patience. Cancer has to learn not to take everything personally. But when they do make that effort, their friendship becomes a rare gem, resilient, real, and rooted in deep mutual respect. And in a world full of transactional relationships, this one stands out. Because Aries brings loyalty without conditions. And Cancer brings love without demands. Together, they create a space where both can be fully themselves, no masks, no performances, just raw, imperfect, honest connection. That's what makes them yin and yang. Not identical, not even always in sync, but necessary to each other's balance. Where he burns too hot, she cools. Where she sinks too deep, he lifts. And that kind of friendship, it doesn't just last. It transforms. Business, hustler meets strategist. When it comes to business partnerships, few are as paradoxical, or potentially powerful, as the pairing of an Aries man and a Cancer woman. One moves at lightning speed, chasing risk like it's oxygen. The other moves like the tide, predictable, measured, intuitive. On paper, they might seem like a mismatch. But in practice, they could build something extraordinary, if they can survive the learning curve. Because when the fire of ambition meets the emotional intelligence of strategy, you don't just get hustle. You get vision with endurance. The Aries man enters business like he enters everything else, head first. He's an idea machine, always thinking 5 steps ahead, or, more accurately, 5 leaps ahead. He's not afraid to start from scratch, take a loss, or pivot hard if something isn't working. His energy is his brand. He's charming, magnetic, and people believe in his ideas because he believes in them with his whole chest. But here's the danger, he often acts before thinking through the consequences. He may underestimate costs, overpromise timelines, or bulldoze through a deal just to keep the momentum going. That's where the Cancer woman comes in, not to slow him down, but to ground him. She is the strategist, the planner, the emotionally intelligent negotiator who doesn't just think about profits, she thinks about people. Clients. Employees. Partners. Reputation. She reads between the lines in contracts, hears the tone beneath a client's voice, and senses a shift in team morale before anyone else even notices. She's not just about numbers, she's about the long game. While Aries is building the rocket, Cancer is making sure there's a launch pad, a map, and a backup parachute, just in case. Their partnership works best when each respects the other's domain. Aries lights the fire, Cancer builds the fireplace. He'll say, "Let's launch by next week," and she'll calmly point out the 5 things that need to be in place first. He'll grow impatient, "Why are you stalling?" But if he listens, he'll realize she's not stalling, she's safeguarding. And she'll have to learn not to be paralyzed by every risk. Sometimes, Aries is right, the leap comes before the net appears. That's how innovation happens. But conflict? Oh, it's inevitable. Aries will get frustrated with Cancer's caution. He'll see her careful planning as hesitation or fear. He may accuse her of killing the vibe or blocking momentum. And Cancer, equally, may see Aries as reckless. She'll worry that his impulsivity will cost them everything, money, reputation, stability. She might become passive-aggressive, retreat emotionally, or double down on control to feel secure. This can create a dangerous loop. Aries pushes harder, Cancer withdraws deeper, and communication breaks down. The solution lies in communication styles. Aries must learn to listen before reacting. To understand that Cancer's concerns aren't personal attacks, they're safeguards. Cancer must learn to speak directly, not just emotionally. To say, here's why this doesn't feel right, instead of hoping Aries will intuit her discomfort. Mutual respect isn't optional here, it's everything. When they treat each other as equals, not obstacles, their combined power is unstoppable. Because together, they fill in each other's blind spots. Aries brings innovation, bold branding, fearless marketing. He's a natural at pitching, persuading, leading a crowd. Cancer brings people skills, long-term planning, and an ability to hold things together when they start to crack. She's the one who notices when a team member is about to burn out, when a deal is emotionally off, or when a brand message is unintentionally alienating a key demographic. Aries may think short-term wins, but Cancer ensures the business survives and scales. In a startup, Aries is the spark of life. In a legacy business, Cancer is the heartbeat. One without the other lacks balance. Too much Aries, and the company burns out in a year. Too much Cancer, and it never leaves the launch pad. But together, they can build a business that's both thrilling and sustainable. Something fast, but thoughtful. Bold, but ethical. Profitable, but human. They're not just a hustler and a strategist. They're a visionary and an architect. One says, what if, and the other says, let's make it last. In the best-case scenario, Aries helps Cancer take more risks, believe in herself, and stop fearing every unknown. And Cancer helps Aries see that success isn't just about speed, it's about staying power. So yes, they can absolutely make a business work. In fact, they can make it thrive. If they trust each other, if they honor the other's rhythm, and if they remember they're not just building profits, they're building a partnership, then their venture isn't just sustainable. It's legendary. Final thoughts, can it work? An Aries man and Cancer woman might seem like a wild card match, and in many ways, they are. Their differences are loud, obvious, and sometimes exhausting. But beneath all that contrast lies something rare, the potential to build something extraordinary. This relationship isn't for the faint of heart. It's for those who believe that fire doesn't always have to burn, and water doesn't always have to drown. Sometimes, just sometimes, they can create steam. Movement. Power. Energy. And if these two can stop trying to change each other, and instead, learn from each other, then yes. It absolutely can work. So the next time you see an Aries man falling for a Cancer woman, don't ask, how? Ask, what will they teach each other? And then, just maybe, you'll see what happens when the stars dare to do something different. If you enjoyed this cosmic deep dive, don't forget to hit that like button, subscribe for more zodiac insights, and check out the links in the description for more content. Got a zodiac combo you want to explore next? Drop it in the comments, we might just decode your stars next.